Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the JAMODI Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information. You said fear of losing. I love that you went into that because I think that's a part of coaching that isn't talked about a lot. Everybody wants to talk about the scheme or what's going to happen or what we need to do to help us to win more games. And almost like culture, we go into the season thinking like this is going to work, we're going to win a lot of games, but inevitably we will lose. How did you, and not to talk about Shawnee again, but she talks about the fear of losing a lot with coaches and how that handcuffs us to make those decisions and to maybe coach with courage more than we do. How did you get over that fear of losing to the point where now you said 5 years into it, yeah, I'm okay if we do?
Well, the Hagen thing had a lot to do with it, if I'm being completely honest. That year, 2 years ago, again, it's the first time in my career where
talk about perspective there, right?
Yeah, you're just walking out because now it's hit home, right? Now you've got your kids are around you, and they're like, we got 14 guys on that roster, and one of them is going through this. Well, this could very easily be you, and because it was so close to home, it's like, okay, it is perspective, and that was probably the first start. I think, how we pan. Maybe it's just getting older. Maybe it's just going through this. Like I'm starting to realize winning is hard. We've been fortunate enough to win a lot, and so maybe I've been even a little spoiled with that because it's easy to say it when you lose one game all season going in the tournament, and you lose 5 games in 2 years. But it is truly how I believe. I talked to a coach at the Final Four the other day, and we were kind of talking about the same thing. And same thing. He's like, "Man, I'm sorry. How did you feel afterwards?" And I'm like, "I'm good. I'm good. Maybe that's bad. Maybe I need to get in a different profession because
Coach, I wanted to ask you if you care more, please. If we just care more, please be more upset."
I will say this: I need to do a better job because one thing that I thought was a good thing, but also I think we missed out on some opportunity this year was they were so used to winning, and they were so much expectation they had on themselves that after games, I mean, I'm walking in, we just won the Elite Eight. We're walking into the locker room, and they're just sitting down and they're ready. They're like, and again, it's not that they didn't want to do that, but we got to the point where like, man, it's almost dangerous because the expectation, they reached it. They thought they were going to win. They believed it. They did it. And now it's like, okay, who do we have next? And so only one team gets to win their last game. And so I do want to be careful. That's one thing in the off season I need to figure out on my end is we do want to celebrate all these things, and we do. They mean something. But let's also make sure that you can't get tired. Don't get tired of it. Don't get bored with it because man, when you're 6-24, you'd give anything to get that feeling back. So yeah, there's a balance there that I need to probably do a better job and figure out in the off season of how we celebrate what we celebrate. I'm a pretty mild mannered on the sidelines anyway, and it's not because I don't care. It's because I'm not emotional, right? Mm-hmm. It's just because I'm thinking and I'm trying to process stuff, like a point guard 4 or 5 possessions ahead and time and score, and you're trying to make the game easy on your guys. But it doesn't mean that, we don't want to kick your teeth in. It doesn't mean that, we're not going to give everything we have to try to beat you. But yeah, just again something to grow in myself as a coach.
That balance is hard. That balance is hard because, to your point, right after a win, your mind is racing and thinking towards tomorrow. What do we have to work on? Who do we have next? What's the next step? But then allowing yourself to be where your feet are and be in the moment, allowing
Mm-hmm.
your parents to be in your players to be in the moment. But then the next morning at practice, for them to have an edge, for them
Mm-hmm.
not to be complacent. I think that's maybe where the art of coaching does come in. It's those days that, like, guys like TJ Rosine at Emmanuel, like, he
Mm-hmm.
just seems to know the moment when we're going to play dodgeball today. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're not gonna do what's normal. After you hear things like after a loss, instead of like hammering your team, you do something outside the norm. I don't know. I love to know like a manual for doing that, like for getting better in those, or how much is it feel and knowing your team?
Well, what TJ's great at, what he's figured out, is something that um, you know, Coach Mahalski told me a long time ago is we we don't coach basketball, we teach basketball, we coach people. Where they're not robots, right? So a lot of guys coach basketball, but in reality, what TJ does, and he's done so good for a long time, he's one of the best, is he knows people and he coaches people, and every day is pouring into those. So there is, you get better at it, right? You get a grasp on, okay, where's your team at? What's the feeling? Where we, for us in Indiana, what we have to deal with is like literally it's gray skies for 4 months in a row, and it's cold in Indiana. We get the lakefront from Chicago, and luckily we're playing indoors during those times. But it's reality. Like, man, it's tough to wake up. You just got back on a bus trip at 1 a.m. You got an 8 a.m. class. You got chapel at 10:30. Oh yeah, by the way, practice is at 4 because we gotta hurry up and get ready for here comes Indiana Wesleyan on Saturday, and just the mental fatigue that can do on your players and your coaching staff.
Yeah.
Like, we have families, we have wives and kids that we also want to spend time on. So it's a balance and it's challenging. But I think the more you do it, the better you get at it. You know how to let things go. And TJ's obviously been fun. I just actually got a chance to talk with him quite a bit at the Final Four there, and again, rinse repeat. Had another awesome season.
He's the man. With that whole PGC crew, he was
Yep.
always one of those guys that when I got to be around him, I don't know, it's just something really special about him. And you had a great point right there about your assistant coaches. I think that I know I do a poor job of not thinking about them, where they're at mentally, physically. Like you talked about mental fatigue right there. I think as head coaches, we focus on our players quite a bit. What do you
Mhm.
do to intentionally stay in touch with your assistants so that you know where they are?
Well, one thing that's good is I purposely designed it for having younger guys that were similar to life with me, and not saying that you know I didn't want an older coach or someone wise, but I had enough people in my life. Coach K had been here 42 years, and I have the unique opportunity that he's a phone call away. He comes to my office constantly, and I can pick his brain. He's been doing this forever. But I really wanted to get coaches that I could live life with in
Hmm.
this. So one thing that we are very intentional about, we meet in the office and we do that, but like we'll go play 18 holes, and we can do the same thing on the golf course, or the same thing. We have 100 lakes in our county, and we got a lake 2 blocks down the street, and we've got boats and jet skis and all that fun stuff. Like, let's just get on the boat and let's cruise, and let's talk about where our kids are in their faith right now. Let's
Hmm.
talk about where we are as a program and what we need to do next. Like, there's no set rule book on how. Coach K gave me the best thing advice he could ever give me were two things. He said, one, build a team that you'd want to play on. So that's how you need to recruit, is build a team that you personally would want to play on. And two, do it exactly how you would want to do it. Don't do it how I did it. Don't do how someone else did it. So for me, what's the one thing you hear from kids and coaches and why they get out of this, whether it's true or not, they use the word fun. Well, it's not fun anymore. The fun is gone,
Yeah.
right? And I never wanted to get that. I was like, well, why is it not fun? Why can we not, I'm 38 years old. Like, I know I'm not the same I was back when I was in college with these guys, but even how we approach our conditioning and our season stuff, like my team, we're playing sand volleyball, right? We're doing paintball. We're doing fun activities. We're out on the lake. We're doing stuff. We're just same thing with my assistants is we're trying to make this whole thing it's not just a job. It is part of like a family and what we're trying to do. But man, people tell you you got to do it a certain way. It's a lie. Um, and that's what we try to do. And it's not perfect. And we make adjustments every year. We take a look and say, hey, what worked, what didn't, what team do we have this year? What do we need to focus on? But my assistants are so good at that. And we value family so much. I'm the only one on my staff that has a child right now, and he's young. Obviously, he's 3.5. But all my assistants are married. One is engaged, is getting married here this next year, and just them for the girls to see how they've been around each other, and
That's cool.
it's only going to get better. Like now that Charlie's getting a little older now, and he can go with me, like to bring our wives and stuff. We were just at the Final Four, and
Yeah.
we rented a house, and I made the comment like, "Gosh, we got to get our wives here. Like we got to do this again next year with all four of them because it is special, and
Yeah.
you do want to bring them into what you're doing because it matters."
Coach, I think fun is underrated. Like I think we don't talk about that enough, about it remaining to be fun. Even at your level when it is,
Mm-hmm.
golly, it's serious and not just with, obviously that situation with your player a couple of years ago, that's on a whole other level, but just within, you wanting to be excellent, your program wanting to, maybe needing to win, like that is important. But no matter what level it is, like going back to the why of why we all started playing was that it was fun taking that
Exactly.
ball and trying to throw it in that hoop. That's we keep kind of go back to the art of coaching again. I think that's the challenge. How can we help them to get better at a good rate while keeping it fun? That's where creativity, maybe us as coaches getting uncomfortable with the drills, the skill work, the ideas that were like one of my favorite things, get I want to work on one ball handling. We're going to get dodgeballs out and you just have to pound that ball
Go
while
get it.
you play dodgeball. Coach, I'm achieving what I want is them working on their handle with focusing on something else, but they're playing dodgeball and seeing them smile. Like you said, weathering the year, like it is a grind. I don't care what level you're at or what level of sun you have. It's a grind to get through that year and for not intentionally stealing the fun away, but finding ways to inject even more of it.
Yep. And there's no perfect plan. There's no
No,
every year's been a little different. Again, I think that goes back to what you're talking about with TJ is you got to feel right, and winning is fun, but also there's some teams who win that it's not fun. Like let's put that winning doesn't just equal fun. Now that's what we're trying to do, but man, if we're winning a bunch and we're miserable, get me out of this. Like I just go rather make a lot more money in sales, right? And I could have fun when my check account gets bigger. Uh, but yeah, it is. It's and that's where you have that's why the staff is important because when you have guys that can kind of say like, hey, I think that here's where we're at today. Like, what do you guys think? And be like, you know what? You're probably right. Like, we just came off of a huge emotional win. We got a game on Saturday. It's Thursday. We're in game 24 of the season. Like, what could I possibly do in this hour 45 minutes that's going to get our guys better? Well, it's probably mental. So, what can I do for them mentally? Oh, yeah, let's grab the wiffle ball bat. Let's put the bases out. Hey, practice today is we're going to watch 15 minutes of some things we cut up from the last game, and then boom, let's pick teams. And yeah, and again, it's not always like that. It's not always an exact science, but
and
it
fun
is
doesn't mean
important.
undisciplined either.
Correct.
Like that, I think sometimes people lump those two things together. Well, if you want to have a fun program, that means that you're really not getting better. You're not accomplishing anything. You're probably not going to win, and it's very undisciplined. I push
Hmm.
back on that.
Yep, I would too.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.